It's a new week of SDH AM. Here, John, here, you there. Let me change a quick design piece here so we can actually see branding. No, that wasn't it. It was this one. That's the one. All right, there we go. John, here, you there. It's another week of SDH AM, Soccer's morning show. And today, we'll kind of catch up over the weekend. There's a lot of morning news, especially going on overseas in England with coaches shifting and players shifting and stuff like that we'll get into. We know a championship game from a couple of semifinals that happened this weekend. We'll kind of track it and let you know what it's going to look like. Two teams in Florida playing for a championship in one of the women's leagues. We'll have your defining moments from those matchups coming up here in hour number one. Obviously, here in hour number one, we'll catch up with Abe Gordon. Abe is multitasking. So you have, if you have multiple devices going on right now, you might be hearing Abe doing more than one thing. So Abe is on tape. We caught up with Abe. We'll play him here in just a little bit. Get you ready as Abe bats leadoff on Mondays. Ricky's already jacked up and excited about the contract renewal of a particular individual at Al Nassr. So Ricky's in this morning very, very early with what's going on there. Nations League, we do have some fun math involving our friends from San Marino and qualification for the World Cup, which we thought was rather unique and interesting. And so there's irony that's attached to that. If you caught up with Morning Espresso, you know that there are coaching changes going on and coaching desires that might be happening. So, like I said, there's a lot going on in the news department. Abe's is more philosophical, where we get you ready for what's going to be going down on Thursday. We'll see if we can catch up with our buddy Glenn Crooks between now and then and give the NYCFC version of preparation for a matchup Thursday night in the Bronx on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app as everybody tries to race back from national team duty, where you've seen a lot of folks for Atlanta United score goals and be active regardless of what level they are when it comes to Atlanta United. So we'll see what happens there once again as the race is on. You have one more match in the international window, mostly tomorrow. Some of them are on tonight. Some of them tonight, most of them tomorrow. Planes are going to be caught on Wednesday, trying to figure out, okay, who do I have? How many minutes? Where can I put you? Those kinds of things for Ronnie Dyla as Atlanta United gets ready for the second half of the season. First matchup in the Bronx against NYCFC. Hour number two, obviously, Bart Keeler from the SoccerForUSPod, where we will discuss what happened over the weekend. We'll hear from Mauricio Pochettino as we lead into Bart, and we'll let you know what's on Bart's mind, where the U.S. men's national team had a 1-0 lead till they didn't. End up losing 2-1 in East Hartford to Turkey, and we'll see what Bart's thoughts are. The sky is falling from all the feedback that he has been getting. There has been a bit of a back and forth involving folks who are mad about who is in, who is not in, and we did get into that with Bart leading into the weekend. We'll see how opinions have either altered, changed, or been reinforced with what happened with who wasn't around for the U.S. men's national team in their matchup against Turkey as they get ready for the matchup tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, in Nashville, we'll hear from our friend Lucas Panzica, who, along with Jamie Watson, is going to be calling the matchup on Westwood 1. Lucas will be batting leadoff tomorrow, so we'll catch up with Lucas. We'll try and track down Jamie and see if we can catch up with Jamie about it too. But we'll get their thoughts about everything leading into the matchup. So Lucas Panzica is going to be calling the match for Westwood 1. We'll catch up with him batting leadoff tomorrow as they get ready for the U.S. Playing at Geodis. And so that'll be a really cool catch-up there on Tuesday for us here at SDH AM. So that's the rundown. And starting at 10:30, So in an hour and 20 minutes from now, it is a moment at Mercedes-Benz Stadium that folks have been waiting for a while. You're going to get conversion from turf to grass starting at 10:30, or at least that's when they let the media in. So if I'm not mistaken, I think Jason and our Caroline Hood are there, and we'll see if there's anything going on at 10:30 with the conversion of the grass, the surface at Mercedes-Benz to grass for the Club World Cup. So I know that Jason will be inside the walls for that, as we'll see if there's anything going on. Maybe we'll see Jason rolling the grass out as a part of it. So we'll see what happens. But grass conversion starts, at least for the media, at 10:30. So we'll have that coming up in the final half hour of the show as well. So once again, Abe Gordon coming up on tape here in just a little bit. Bart Keeler joining us from the SoccerForUSPod at the top of hour number 2 to talk about the men's national team and all the things. We've got all the news in between. Coaches that are shifting from one team to another, players shifting from one team to another, all the news that happened this past weekend, and all of the things. So let's say hi to everybody before we get into Abe Gordon this morning and 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. So let's see. Morning, Ricky. Morning, Abby. Morning, David. And those are the early returns. And so let's see. So Ricky is quite pleased. I know this will shock you with what went down with Cristiano Ronaldo at the age of 227, getting a Nations League title for Portugal. And Ricky's like, I wish you wouldn't have renewed. Morning, Abby. And I'm thinking that everybody is gassed up in their volunteerism and getting ready for Club World Cupage and all that kind of stuff. Morning, David. David's in. Ricky starts his training on Wednesday. So we'll see what happens there. David, last day of live watch until he returns from the annual Ohio-Michigan family trip. So, all right. So, David, how does that work? Are you allowed to mention the state up north when you're in Ohio, and then do you mention the state down south when you're in Michigan? Is that how that works? I don't know where family allegiances are when it comes to college football. I didn't know if it was the state up north and the state down south, depending on where you are in your summer travels. Oh, okay. So it is so if your wife's a Michigan fan, as David lets us know, and so David's wife is a Michigan fan. So how does she respond when you're in Ohio? Is it just something that has to be endured? I cannot believe David, family's Ohio State, wife is a Michigan fan, lots of lip biting. Okay. I wish you nothing. Yes, yeah, very carefully worded and progressed through. I wish you nothing but the speed from your God, sir. But just get through it in one piece. And Abby's letting us know that she is halfway through her shifts, gets her full uniform tonight. And Abby's letting us know FIFA is very disorganized. Not necessarily something that I think that's probably a prevailing opinion across the board. But we'll see what else is going on as we go. So once again, Abe Gordon coming up here in just a little bit, and then it'll be our buddy Bart Keeler letting us know about anything and everything that he saw from the weekend involving the U.S. men's national team. Like I said, we're going to go we're going to do a three-dimensional kind of a thing with Bart because of where we are. You had folks that were sitting at desks who were yelling about folks that were not available for friendlies. You had folks in post-match interviews that were somewhat pointed. But we'll get into that. We'll get into what happened with the U.S. and we'll get you ready for the matchup tomorrow. David, wow. Responds very carefully. Nephew used to offer to change my kids' diapers and throw them in Ohio State baby apparel. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Yeah, because part of the posse here at SDH over on the college football side is a Youngstown born and bred TOSU fan. And so we get all of the Connor Stallion stuff and all of that. So for those of you when it comes to college football, OSG sports side of things for the review every single week during the college football season. And we carry it through basketball too. So no, it's but no, trust me, I understand. All right. So I guess that was pretty much opening kickoff. Oh man. Yeah, we'll do it that way because, like I said, we got highlights coming up on the other side of Abe Gordon for a championship game in USL Super League, and so we'll get into that coming up in just a little bit. So here's all your promos. Once again, you can start your day with our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code for those of you hanging out with us. However you are hanging out with us, large device or small, you kick off your day there with our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And then you can buy out the entire store, which we do encourage, by the way. Then what you do after you have bought out the entire store at checkout, use the code SoccerDownHere15 because then you get 15% off your purchase. Then they in turn take 10%. Our friend Melissa Ortiz and all the friends at Kickoff Coffee take 10% reinvested into youth games, youth initiatives brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Okay, let's run through all the promos really quickly. Once again, you can go to soccerdownhere.net. You can get your shopping done. I don't think you can get these. This is the retro. Literally, I've had this, I think, since day one when this went on the market. That's how durable and soft this is. But the new logo stuff is available at SDH, soccerdownhere.net. You can get all the stuff there. And you can also get stuff from the Attack and the Ruckus that Jason has retrofied. So you can get all the SDH gear plus a couple of franchises that are no longer in existence in the shop section at soccerdownhere.net. Also, once again, don't forget, you can become a Fanatico for $10 a year. You're sitting there and you're going, $10 a year, John, that's a bargain. And you're sitting there going, well, yes, it is. It absolutely is a bargain. And what I mean by that is what you can do is go to group.chant.fan/soccerdownhere/join. I'll type it out because I always end up screwing it up. And you can become a Fanatico, and you get a lot of discounts at a lot of different places by being a Fanatico. And you can be a part of our community here. Once again, this is part of our Soccer for Good campaign here in 2025. A lot of discounts, a lot of different places here in the upper half of the state of Georgia, plus a resort in Costa Rica. I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. Group.chant.fan/soccerdownhere/join. Let me see if I typed it correctly. Did I? Oh my God, I might have actually done it. There we go. Group.chant.fan/soccerdownhere/join. You can become a Fanatico, $10 a year, and you get a lot of cool discounts from a lot of different places around the state. The boss actually took it to O'Sullivan's this past weekend, being a Fanatico. So Decatur FC had a busy weekend. It was a big win over UFA, and everything is steering itself toward the last three matches of the season. It is a road match this weekend on the 20th and the 25th. That is a home and home against Impact, and then on the 27th, it is the regular season finale against Chattanooga FC. You'll see me on the 20th. You won't see me on the 27th unless you're going to be at the boss's birthday party, which is not going to be at Decatur High School. But big weekend in the WPSL. But yes, you can become a Fanatico right there. Group.chant.fan/soccerdownhere/join. And it's a lot of cool discounts from a lot of different places here in the upper half of the state of Georgia and Chateau Arenal in Costa Rica. So very, very cool stuff there. Wiley, the double dog so dare you. LOL at the double dog so dare you last night. Well, and yeah, I mean, Seattle, we got to get into that. Yeah, that'll probably be part of Bart. That'll probably be part of Bart at 10 o'clock. 2 Reds in 3 minutes. Seattle goes down to 9, and it was a difficult evening. Difficult evening if you're a fan of Seattle, but we'll get into that too in hour number 2 in the reffing down here part of Bart's segment. But yes. Yeah, but the fact that one of them was new, who is not a surprise. It was not a surprise. So we'll go over the weekend that was also. We'll go over a little bit of it with Bart, but we'll go over most of it tomorrow and get you ready for everything that's going on there as we get ready on the quick turn for everything going on in Major League Soccer. But yeah, we'll go over the double dog, so dare you. And 2 Reds in 3 minutes for Seattle. We'll go over that with Bart in addition to the USMNT. Abby, I appreciate that very much. She misses seeing us at KSU. That reminds me, we'll catch up with Steve Cook at 11:30 today as a part of our coverage, the matchup against Huntsville City Football Club, 5 o'clock in Athens on Wednesday afternoon. And so that will be Hunt City Football Club on our Mixler channel. And can't wait to see everybody who will make the trek to Athens, who will be in Athens for this matchup. But Hunt City and Atlanta United 2, that's going to be Wednesday afternoon at 5, 4:30 pregame. Maddie Cruz and I will have that for you on the network. And then that'll set up Atlanta and NYC Thursday night, 6:30 pregame, 7:40 kick, sorry. And then the full-time report after with Abe and Maddie. So that's the early part of the week. And don't forget, AST is going to be from the Brew House tomorrow night. So you're going to have the friendly from 8 to 10. You're going to have Jason doing AST from 10 to 11. So busy night at the Brew House tomorrow to watch the USMNT. But like I said, Bart Keeler is going to join us in about 40 minutes, and we'll break everything down with Bart there when it comes to the USMNT that was. Also, getting into our promos before we get into Abe Gordon once again, you can help out the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation. Scarves you get from me on the other side of this wall. Like I said, I got about 10. And then middle week of August, Springdale, Arkansas, the first ever Outrigger Challenge Cup. It is the Marshall Islands. It is Turks and Caicos. It is Guam, and it is the U.S. Virgin Islands, I believe. Those 4. I think one of them backed out. I think Guam that backed out. One of them backed out. But anyway, you're going to have Marshall Islands, the Outrigger Challenge Cup, middle week of August in Springdale, Arkansas. We'll try and be there for that as much as we can because that's high school football season for me. We got to figure out where I'm going to be and how I'm going to be there. But yeah, we're going to try and be there as much as possible for the Outrigger Challenge Cup in Arkansas in the middle of August. But you can get all your Marshall Islands gear from them. Most of it ships from England. You get the scarf, it ships from me on the other side of this door. Also, Olive in York, you can get your first ever SDH jersey. Kaiser Permanente can't do anything without our friends at Kaiser Permanente. They're across the front. Beyond Goals Mentoring on one sleeve and Soccer for Good on the other sleeve. It is a Navy jersey, and consult Alex and Abby as to figuring out how you wish to have it personalized, either in the navy or the double blue, like the lighter blue, the Carolina blue, the Columbia blue, or in white. So you can have it done either way on the Navy jersey, courtesy of our friends at Olive in York. Also, our friends at Grady Baby and Grady Baby Co. The soccer is just better in Atlanta gear, the red and the black, the T-shirt and the sweatshirt. What you can do there with the gold embossed soccer is just better in Atlanta gear. You get that at Grady Baby. Proceeds from that as a part of our Soccer for Good campaign here in 25 benefit middle school soccer programs attached to the Atlanta public school system. So very, very cool stuff there. So Grady Baby, Olive in York, soccerdownhere.net, Marshall Islands, and Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. You get all the BNs. You get Nostra Tele, CDO for the fans, Liga 1, Liga 1 Max Pro, Teise, Gold TV, and our buddy Nino Torres, who was losing his mind in the Intermedio this past weekend. And we'll catch up with our buddy Nino on Thursday, as well as our buddy Nico Moreno. But I think that's all the promos. Olive in York, Grady Baby, Marshall Islands, SDH, be a Fanatico, and join Fanatis. I think that's it. For everybody. Okay. So that's opening kickoff. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Once again, QR code right here, and you can get your Kickoff coffee right there. Then you buy out the entire store. You can do it at a 15% discount. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. All right, it is that time where we catch up with our buddy Abe Gordon and find out what's going on in his mind. Once again, Abe is on the air right now at 92.9 The Game in the Odyssey app. And you know what? Abe's going to be on the air right now with us because we've already talked about things. It's a conversation about Atlanta United, conversation about the men's national team to get you ready for Bart coming up at 10 o'clock. So here is our conversation with Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game in the Odyssey app. All right, bat and lead off as he always does. It's Abe Gordon here at 92.9 The Game in the Odyssey app. So, Abe, I mean, it was an international window that we're in. The sprint after match day 2 in the international window, and then of course Atlanta United on Thursday is playing at the U12 pitch in the Bronx, and so I will be intrigued to see who makes the race home and how many minutes are going to be made available to whomever when it comes to Thursday.
Hopefully a lot of them can get home and get going, because they all seem to be in form. Like every time I looked up, I was being tweeted at another goal from a member of Atlanta United. I mean, Sleesh had a nice little worm burner. I think I saw Jay Fortune score. I think Saba scored. So the good news is if they can get back and they are rested, it feels like some of these guys are in form. I think I saw Miggy had a nice performance as well. So if these guys can get back, maybe, and we talked about this a little bit, maybe not here on the podcast, but certainly on the full-time report, just these guys getting out and going away to their international squads and international duty and just kind of gaining confidence from strong performances. And I think now the challenge is, can you bring that, both the level of performance, but also the confidence that you have as an individual? What it's like to win again sometimes can help a little bit. Maybe someone should tell the Braves that. But it just any little boost right now, because I thought there was a disproportionate reaction, if we're going to be honest, to the loss against Red Bulls. It was certainly frustrating. No one's denying that. But that one loss didn't mean you lose all 6 of these road games or have 5 left here. And I do think it was a little disproportionate. I do think there is still the possibility that you have some momentum moving forward after those recent home wins. And so I'm looking forward to it. I do understand the Little League pitch and how it maybe adjusts what you need to do, how you develop and score goals. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Ronnie Dyla manages that for his first time here, but obviously he's very familiar with the pitch up there from previous stops. So I'm feeling pretty good, if we're going to be honest. A little break, a little bit of a mental step away from the disappointing loss, and seeing all these guys play at a high level, perform at a high level, and hopefully getting back here has got me kind of juiced up for Thursday, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah, and I know that we're also kind of keeping an eye on the injury front. You're going to be getting Tristan William-Baugh back at some point. He's toward the end of that recovery process, but you do lose Keeman Togashi and the backup that you had at the striker position. So yeah, there is a give and take when it comes to the injury element of it all. But, you know, you look at Latte Lot, who all he has to do is fly from Toronto. So, you know, as long as he can navigate Pearson Airport traffic, then he can get to New York and everything is fine there. But no, I think that, to your point, you're looking at a match with NYC where it's not you just have to be mentally on for a full 90 minutes just because of all of the reverb and the pinball that happens there. It's not something where you're focused on build-up. You're focused on passing and shooting and having all of the lineup in its past form with Saba out on the outside. Like I said, I'm intrigued, as are you, for the reasons that it's a different approach in New York when it comes to playing in the Bronx as it would be on a traditional pitch. And yes, I did just use air quotes.
Yeah, and the concerning thing is some of the quality of goal that Atlanta United has given up, how turnovers have led to chances, how misplays in the back have led to chances. And I do think because of what you face up there, it probably gets magnified a little bit. And you have to be, as you mentioned, extra tight, extra focused. Every bounce has to be yours. The turnovers in the midfield, especially in the defensive midfield, that is closer to an attacking point. You got to be tight on those. And so there's no doubt about it. You're going to have to come and play better than you did against Red Bulls. And I don't know how many times throughout the streak of losses that I mentioned this to you, even in some of the wins, goals are too easy to come by for Atlanta United opponents. I mean, imagine if this team made opponents work as hard to score goals as Atlanta United has to work to score goals. I mean, it'd be an immensely different season. And I don't think it's because of a lack of quality. I don't think it's a lack of talent. I just think there have been so many miscues, mistakes, and misplays that have absolutely cost this team. And there just haven't been the other end of that where you're the benefactor of some of those. There's been a couple here or there, but I just think you got to be buttoned up and dialed in. There's no doubt about that. I still think there's a season to be had if you can clean up. I really do. I don't think it's such a situation where there's no talent. I think we've seen, because of some of the wins here, that if you can just clean up something that makes it easy to beat you, that you can go on a run. So I'm still confident. Now it needs to start, right? I mean, you're past halfway now. This is the official past halfway point coming up. And so you need to start to turn it around a little bit. I think you started to, and now you need to continue that, especially as the only squad in the East that hasn't been able to do much on the road.
Yeah, and you look at what it looks like on the road. Atlanta United 0-5-2 on the road, and they are the only team not to get a full point result on the road this year. You do have a couple of folks that only have one win on the road and so on and so forth. But Atlanta United right now 0-5-2 in the Eastern Conference. All right, so since you are optimistic toward the second half of the season, this was a question that was posed when we were up at Nofo Brewing and Coming on Saturday. When it comes to bright spots in the first half of the season for Atlanta United, and Maddie and Jason and I each had our different answers, but I will pose this question to you. Who are bright spots for you in the first half of the season for Atlanta United when it comes to what you've seen, even though the current win-loss record does not reflect what a lot of folks would have liked to have seen at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine like them, you start immediately with the homegrowns in the academy, and it's Matt Edwards and Jay Fortune. Those are the first two, and we've talked about them at length in pregame shows and postgame shows here on the podcast as well. I think you have to start there, but I actually want to take it a step back further. The first bright spot is the recognition from Ronnie Dyla, the development of the formation, right? The five in the back, the three center backs. I don't think Matt Edwards becomes what he's become without the recognition of we're going to switch to this formation and see if it works. And likewise, Jay Fortune, for a lot of the same reasons. I think this formation has allowed those two specific guys to really blossom and bloom into what they've been the last, I don't know, 5-6 match days, whatever the number is. I think you go a little bit further back, and I know he's been banged up here and there. Tristan Moyaba has had the best season that he's had as a member of Atlanta United, and it comes off of some really tough moments a year ago where a lot of people were really down on his ability and his performance. Mistakes got made, and sometimes they still do, but I think Moyaba has been very good as well. And then, like, the ageless wonder, like Brad Guzan really just stays at a high level. And you know, I don't know what I expected coming off of his injuries. I don't know what I expected another year later as he gets older and inevitably is 1 year closer to retirement. But he's just playing at a high level. And I don't know when the fall off is going to come. I'm a little nervous about like continually giving him contracts. There doesn't seem to be some great succession plan there. But he's also playing at a very high level, and I think that has to be noted as well. Recently, Moranchuk, the past 3 or 4 matches. So we got to see a little bit more of that to continue. But he's played very well also.
Yeah, and those were the common threads you had. Yeah. You had I said Matt Edwards and the homegrowns, and then you had Brad was mentioned, and you had Miranchuk mentioned. You had Saba recently with the change of formation with what he was able to do on the right hand side. He was another one that was part of that particular crew that was mentioned.
And honestly, TRA, I know he hasn't been given a ton of play time just because of Latte Loft, but he has scored some of the more important and significant goals for the club this year.
Yep. How much of the U.S. national team did you pay attention to at all this past weekend?
I watched a minute and 20, and then I tweeted out about some nastiness from the Glen. And then I watched the rest of the match and was like, all right, these guys don't know what they're doing yet as a unit. And that's not a huge surprise. There's a lot of new names, a lot of people probably playing together. And I know they had a short camp and all that, but this is a kind of a investigation period. It's a development period to figure out who are your best guys and who do you want to carry that flag when the World Cup comes. And so I think there's a lot of figuring things out still. Obviously, it was a great start, and then it was all ugly from there. And unfortunately, a couple of goals that remind me a little bit too much of watching Atlanta United. Misplays in the back, a deflection gets by the keeper. You didn't make Turkey work hard enough to score goals. And so that certainly is frustrating, and you'll see if you can do better. What is that, tomorrow night against Switzerland? Is that who they got? Yeah. So
in Nashville, yeah.
I'm not going to overreact to it. Like, I know everyone wants to be like, you're the United States. You can't be losing to Turkey. I'm like, I get it. But at the same time, we're figuring things out. I'm not going to get too worried about it. But yeah, I'm just not an overreactor when it comes to that. I'll worry when the games matter.
Well, and that was my follow-up question, was that you seem to have folks that are bent out of shape about not having some of your big guns as you get ready for Gold Cup in this camp and things like that. So you're of the camp of, look, I need to figure out who guys 12 through 26 are. I'm not worried about 1 through 11 when I'm playing Turkey and East Hartford and Switzerland and Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, look, with respect to the Gold Cup, like, I don't know who won, like, the 2003 Gold Cup, or I don't know if they held one that year, but I mean, you get the point. Like, the World Cup is what matters, and people are going to freak out about Pulisic and not representing the country and all that. All I'm sitting here is asking is this guy going to be healthy and ready to roll when the World Cup comes around? Because that's what's most important. And so I totally understand it. And he's been carrying the banner for this country practically single-handedly for almost a decade now, half a decade at least, in regards to Pulisic. And so he needs some time. He's going to get himself ready mentally, physically, and be there for the World Cup. I have no doubts about that. So I was talking with Maddie about this off air one day, and just the overreaction to he doesn't want to do this or doesn't want to do that, or how could you not? And I just like, man, I'm just so singularly focused on the World Cup. Like, I just, some of these tournaments, it's cool to be in, and certainly I want to win them, but like, I'm not going to overreact if we don't, nor am I like going to overly celebrate if we do. It's just the World Cup matters so much more. That all of my focus, as soon as the World Cup ends, is all right, what's the plan over the next 4 years to get the best team possible for the next World Cup? Like, I would have managed U.S. soccer completely differently over the past like 12 or 16 years, because I don't think enough attention was paid to how do we develop our guys for 4 years from now. I think too much of it was we can't be running 36-year-old guys and 37-year-old guys out there just because they've been with the program for a while. Like, no, bring out the young guys, let them start to develop, because in 3 years, that's who's going to be on the World Cup team. Not some 37-year-old defender, 38-year-old defender. I won't use any names, midfielders who have been there, whatever. I don't think they've really had that singular mindset. And that to me has been a little bit of a failure from U.S. soccer.
So you're not going to mention somebody whose name might sound like Skim Cream.
Well, look, this goes back. It's not just him. And look, maybe he'll be there for the World Cup, sure, but like, this goes back. There have been times we're running guys out there, and my mindset is, if you know a guy's not going to be on the next World Cup team, I have no need for him at all to be part of the program. It's just, for me, everything after a World Cup is about building for the next 3.5 years through World Cup qualifying, but to the World Cup ultimately. And if a guy is not going to be there for the next World Cup, unless you're in such a bad shape, and the U.S. soccer shouldn't be in this position that you need a guy to help you qualify for a World Cup, unless you really are in that situation, I move on. Let's bring in some youth in the midfield, or youth up top, or youth in the back line, and figure it all out and get these guys going, because I feel like you're wasting opportunities to figure out who your best guys are for the next 3-4 years and the cycle after that.
All right, broadcast plans for NYC in the U12 pitch.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Again, an odd kickoff evening Thursday, but Mike and Jason will be up there enjoying the Big Apple. I will be back in studio getting you set with a Five Stripes countdown for an hour beforehand, and then certainly back with you for the full-time report afterwards. So looking forward to it. I'm going to remain confident all week. No one can break my stride, at least not until kickoff on Thursday.
And no one can slow you down. Yes. As always, my friend, great to see you on Mondays as we launch things off, and we'll be catching up with you on Thursday as well with NYC.
Sounds good, John. Thanks.
And there goes Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game in the Odyssey app. And so there you go. That's Abe's thoughts here on a Reaction Monday. And I wanted to get his thoughts on the USMNT leading into Bart, who's going to be joining us in 20 minutes. We will hear from Mauricio Pochettino leading into Bart's segment, and we'll go through some of the other news, notes, and everything that is attached to all that is going on. Morning, Dell. Thanks for dropping by. Okay. We do have a championship game set in the USL, and it is an all-Florida Super League final. And so it is Tampa Bay and Fort Lauderdale that are going to be squaring off in the USL Super League final. And there was a moment in the 120th minute in one of them, and it was a moment in the 60th for the other. So let's break down what happened in the USL Super League to get you to the championship game involving Tampa Bay and Fort Lauderdale. And that's going to be on the 14th at 7:30. So once again, it's going to be Saturday night, 7:30 in Tampa. So it'll be the championship by the Riverside or by the Bay. And it is Fort Lauderdale and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay Sun, Fort Lauderdale United, 7:30 Saturday night. That's going to be on Peacock. And so, yes, you can get your seats now as they are there. But for Fort Lauderdale, very, very busy night for Kiera Locklear as they went to American Legion Stadium in Charlotte to take on Carolina Ascent. It would take a while, but it would be Locklear getting both the goals to make sure that Fort Lauderdale would get to the title game in USL Super League. Here is the one that decided it later than late, courtesy of our friends at the USL Super League in Peacock.
Of soccer here this evening in Charlotte. Bronx. Over the top, Locklear's there. She finds the back of the net, the flag stays down, and Kiara Locklear with the go-ahead goal in the 120th minute. This entire Carolina team thought she was going to be called offside.
Super League, once again, the number 4 seed, Fort Lauderdale, knocks off the top seed, Carolina Ascent, in Charlotte. And so it was 2-1 final, Fort Lauderdale over Carolina. They would advance as the 4 seed, and then they would get the winner of Tampa Bay and Dallas. Dallas traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the Tampa Bay Sun. Here is the decider in that one. It happened 60 minutes earlier than the previous one with Kiera Locklear. But nevertheless, Tampa Bay gets the Duke. Here's the deciding goal there, once again, courtesy of the USL Super League and Peacock.
Ashley Orcus plays it to Bissett. Haugen.
Bissett's been a little quiet today as well.
How about this ball? Jamona on the end of it. Looping towards goal, and Carly Jamona puts Tampa Bay on top.
a great read here, and it almost seemed like it was in slow motion as she was able to just chip it over Madison White and hit that side netting.
So it's the 2 and the 4 that make it to the final in the USL Super League on Saturday. Once again, that's on Peacock. 2-2-1 wins. 2-1 win for Fort Lauderdale. 2-1 win for Tampa Bay. And so Tampa Bay Sun will host as the 2 seed. So we'll see if we can catch up with some folks on this one later on in the week specifically to kind of get the lowdown as to what happened this season and find out what the overall vibe is about the USL Super League, and we'll find out about the title game, and we've been efforting all season long trying to talk to some folks who are the higher ups, kind of like poets laureate, the folks in charge, and so we'll see if we can come up with either a pre-mortem or a post-mortem when it comes to the season here with the USL Super League. But that's your title game. It is the 2 seed Tampa hosting the 4 seed Fort Lauderdale. That is going to be this weekend once again, courtesy of our friends at Peacock. Kiara Locklear, by the way, gets the brace in that one, getting both goals. And so that is how it ends up with the win for Fort Lauderdale in the 120th minute, people. 120th minute. Kiara Locklear gets the Duke, and it ends up with the win there for Fort Lauderdale. All right, so let's take the tour and let you know what's going on with all the news and everything. And there is a lot of news that is going on overseas this morning. It appears that Thomas Frank looks like he is going to be taking the gig with Spurs. May your Lord help you, sir. It's going to be I hope they give you the resources that you're hunting for. Verbally agreed to terms, according to our buddy Ben Jacobs. Ongoing discussions over backroom staff. Deal is subject to Frank's release clause being triggered, but he is expected to replace Ange Postecoglou. That comes from Alex Crook, Ben Jacobs, and others. Parties now finalizing the appointment as of about an hour ago. Angelino set to sign for Al Hilal after agreeing to terms. Offer of up to €23 million was made. Roma expected to accept. We do have some other news involving Calcio coming up in a bit, and it's not good. Manchester City have agreed to have reached an agreement with Lyon to sign Ryan Cherky for €40 million, 5-year deal. Deal's expected to be completed in time for the Club World Cup. Let's see. Everton confirmed they've offered new contracts to Seamus Coleman and Idrissa Gueye, adding they continue to liaise with representatives of Michael Keane and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. All 4 players due to be out of contract at the end of June. Ajax interested in signing Antonio Cordero on loan from Newcastle. The 18-year-old Spanish winger also has options in Germany and Spain. Newcastle, according to our buddy Ben Jacobs, definitely going to loan Cordero out next season. The joke that I gave Ricky when the show started, where Ricky was quite pleased about what happened in the Nations League and Portugal after 120 minutes in PKs. Cristiano Ronaldo says he will extend his deal at Al Nassr. Quote, my future, nothing will change. Al Nassr, yes. So Al Nassr have been working on renewing Ronaldo for almost a year. Chelsea confirmed Mamadou Sarr has joined from Strasbourg, an 8-year contract fee in the region of €14 million. The plan is for Sarr to be a part of the Club World Cup squad. And so it was a 5-3 shootout victory. 2-2 after extra time. Cristiano Ronaldo scoring the equalizer. Ruben Neves, the game-winning penalty. Robert Lewandowski, don't know if you saw this, announced he is not going to play for Poland again while Michael Probierz is in charge as head coach. So we will keep an eye on Lewandowski, Poland, and him not playing while things are currently going on. Victor Osimhen has turned down Al Hilal travel and medical schedule to complete the deal in time for the Club World Cup. €75 million package was in place with Napoli, but formally rejected the offer. And so now that ain't happening. Bucci Laba was the first to break that news. Dortmund agreed to a €38 million package with Sunderland for Joe Bellingham. Fabrizio Romano on the top of that one. Bellingham is expected to sign a 5-year deal. And so now Osimhen's Al Hilal rejection means that it is going to be a race to try to figure out Victor Osimhen and what's going on with Galatasaray. So Genoa confirmed Patrick Vieira has signed a new contract until the summer of 2027. The other piece of news that we wanted to get into before we kind of lean into all of the other gossip, rumor, and innuendo, what to watch, where to watch it, and how to watch it, has to do with Brescia. And, you know, the individual who probably could give us a better breakdown of context would be Nick. But apparently, Brescia is struggling to pay their €3 million debt, and they have filed for bankruptcy. So it now looks like they are going to go extinct after 114 years. 114 years of play, and it looks like Brescia will be no more. Unable to pay a debt of €3 million, declared bankruptcy, 114 years of history, and it looks like Brescia is going to be facing expulsion from professional leagues in Italy. So keep an eye out on that. It is a lot of inbounds and outbounds for players and such. And so you're talking Di Baggio, Pep Guardiola, George Hagi. No one really knows what is the future for Brescia, but it looks like they might be facing the end of it all, and it might be heading all the way down to Serie D, might be heading out to, might be just being completely and totally wiped off the planet. So we'll keep an eye on Brescia, but it ain't looking good for a club that is having €3 million in debt. You go to their official 280 character app, and back on the 29th of May, they had an official correspondence. And they acknowledged the decision of the National Federal Court, examining reasons also with regard to all the detailed defenses brought to the attention of federal judges, reserve the right to an appeal of the process. But that was back on the 29th of May, and we have heard nothing since when it comes to Brescia. So it could be another historic club that could be completely and totally out the door. David Ornstein, kind of breaking the news that we've been breaking a bit. Ornstein now says that Thomas Frank, they're hoping for an agreement with Frank in the next 48 hours. And so David Ornstein, once again, very, very busy. He mentions Ryan Cherky. He mentions Jamie Gittins getting from Borussia Dortmund, having Chelsea submitting an official proposal for Gittins, having agreed to a 7-year contract with the forward, but keep an eye on the next 48 hours involving Thomas Frank. And when it comes to Thomas Frank leaving Brentford and heading to Spurs to be their new head coach, since Ange Postecoglou was told that his services were no longer desired to be head coach. Like I said, I'm just hoping that Thomas Frank gets the resources that he is looking in on. But, of course, knowing what he had to deal with Brentford, he knows about how to deal with things economically. And so maybe it will be just like a larger name, and Thomas Frank dealing with the same kind of economic constraints that he had at Brentford, now just doing it with a club that has a larger name and a longer pedigree than Brentford. Now, the big question is, for Brentford, the trickle-down effect. They're looking at selling Brian Mbeumo, and who do you bring in along the same vein as Thomas Frank, who knows how to deal with the budget, have a fantastic recruiting staff, make sure that those folks that are looking for talent can do so in the same economic constraints that Brentford had under Thomas Frank, and have the same level of mid-table success that they had under Thomas Frank. So keep an eye on Brentford and the hire for Thomas Frank should the next 48 hours come to pass and Thomas Frank become the new head coach at Spurs. So how does Brentford follow up Thomas Frank, especially selling Brian Mbeumo and anyone else that comes knocking on Brentford's door? So what does Brentford do for an encore? That, to me, is the larger question in all of this. Liverpool set to make a final offer worth £118 million, inclusive of add-ons for Florian Wirtz, after Bayer Leverkusen rejected a £113 million bid. Four-letter paper. Everton interested in Jack Grealish, but any move might have to be a loan deal because of his wages at Manchester City. Once again, the four-letter paper. Real Madrid to make one last attempt to sign Real Sociedad's 26-year-old Martin Zubimendi, close to joining Arsenal. They've yet to agree with RB Leipzig over Benjamin Sesko, but the next round of talks have been scheduled. Rasmus Højlund says he's not thinking about leaving Manchester United, despite being linked with a move to Inter Milan. Miles Lewis-Skelly set to a new Arsenal deal, despite interest from Real Madrid. Chelsea's offer of €35 million for Jamie Gittins has been rejected by Dortmund, who are demanding 50 to 60. So you're looking at a difference of at least €13 million on the bottom. Chelsea prepared to pay AC Milan up to €15 million for Mikey Magnon. Verona and Diego Coppola has interest from Bournemouth and Como. Once again, we mentioned Victor Osimhen. Jadon Sancho, one player among several who Al Hilal are considering signing this summer. And the Italian Football Federation keen for Claudio Ranieri to take over after Spalletti has been let go to be the manager. So once again, Danny Rust, Ben Jacobs, everybody sitting there saying there's a verbal agreement in place with Spurs and Thomas Frank. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, before Bart joins us here to start hour number 2, what I wanted to do was play the moments that kind of led into, that are going to lead into our conversation with Bart. First and foremost, the U.S. men's national team wasting no time getting on the board in East Hartford in nasty conditions. It was just rainy and bleh, going up against Turkey. First minute, here's Jack McGlynn, courtesy of our friends at TNT and U.S. Soccer.
And is given his first start with the United States today. Here is Richards, the power span who lifted the FA Cup just a couple of weeks ago. Tillman in the midfield, up towards halfway, pushing the ball down the right side for Jack McGlynn to stride forward. McGlynn claws it in! What a start! What a goal! Jack McGlynn with just 60 seconds gone! Incredible from Jack McGlynn!
And so that was Jack McGlynn scoring for the U.S. men's national team. That would be the only goal that the U.S. men's national team would score. And Turkey would score 2 in quick succession. Like I said, we'll get into that with Bart and the context, subtext, all of the text. You had a 1-0 lead, then you're down 2-1. You don't get an equalizer. So we'll get into that context coming up on the other side. Here's Mauricio Pochettino after the match and the 2-1 loss to Turkey in East Hartford, once again, courtesy of our friends at U.S. Soccer.
Overall, the performance, I think, was good. I think we faced today a team like Turkey, that is a very good team, with the experienced player on the top. And I think this group of players playing for first time, I think we started the game so well. We played 20 minutes, I think, in a high level. I think we did very good things, very positive things. 1-0 up for us. I think, yes, was an impact, an emotional impact when we concede that after we score in the second action. After to concede the first, we conceded in 2 minutes, we conceded 2 goals, and that was difficult to handle for the team. And yes, that we suffered a little bit until to the end of the first half, but I think the second half we recovered our energy and our way to perform, and I think the second half was an even game. Overall, I think maybe we can say that we deserve the draw, but we lose. But I think we need to be positive, because today I think only we can talk about football action, soccer action, but not. I think the team show great energy, great mentality, great attitude, and then it's this type of game that maybe if you made a mistake, you can lose. But made a mistake because it's soccer, it's football. That is why I think I am so happy about in the way that I think we deliver the show, and in the way that we try to play Yes, so positive because I think we have another game now to prepare the Gold Cup and then to face the Gold Cup in a good condition.
Mauricio Pochettino after the 2-1 loss to Turkey in East Hartford. And he thought that they might have deserved a draw. But once again, you're trying to navigate, as we were talking about with Abe, you're trying to figure out, I guess, slots 12 through 26 or 12 through 28. And this is where we bring in Bart Keeler as we break everything down on our Mondays. And we have USMNT to talk about, plus the double dog show that happened in Seattle and anything else that popped into Bart's head. But first and foremost, sir, we watched what happened, and I made a point to play the Mauricio Pochettino sound leading to your appearance here this morning. You had a 1-0 lead, and we'll walk through it, but you couldn't have asked really for a better start going up against Turkey, where Jack McGlynn just decides to drop an absolute bomb from about 23 to get things started in the first minute.
Well, Jack McGlynn did what Jack McGlynn does. And
hey, Anderlecht is interested in it, so now we know, yeah.
I wish he had played better the rest of the game, but, I think it's also fair to ask why the dude is playing on the wing, but that's a whole nother, well, actually it's a conversation for right now anyway. But I think when you look back at this game and Mauricio Pochettino, now granted, he's trying to put a positive spin on things because Homeboy has lost 3 matches in a row, but it wasn't as bad as I think a lot of people want to make this out to be. It just truly wasn't. I think there is some perspective that is being lost here. Turkey is playing basically their first choice lineup. Arda Güler and others who are playing in the Club World Cup chose to play in these friendlies. Now, this is an indictment on the U.S. stars who are tired to play in these friendlies, but whatever, they're not here. So that means that, especially when you looked at the starting lineup, John, not a first choice starting lineup at all, but like one position. And that was one center back, right? You could argue Chris Richards is your only guy in that starting 11 who is a first choice guy. And so, yeah, it makes sense that the final 15 minutes of the first half, maybe final 20, was bad, just straight up bad. Bad soccer, bad teamwork, bad everything. But it wasn't like this is an unexpected result when you look at the grand scheme of things. And then you look at what happened in the second half where I felt the team, well, yes, they gave up some chances that they don't need to be giving up, created several chances and had some half opportunities that they need to figure out how do we convert that to true full opportunities. Part of that is having a striker whose feet aren't made of concrete bricks. Part of that is having, your supposed guys who are going to lead this team stepping up to play better. Part of that is putting a header that you have within 8 yards inside the goal, not at the keeper's hands. And you can look back at this game and see a lot of opportunities that were missed, be it flat out missed or the last connection was missed. It's like a classifieds in a 1980s newspaper over here.
Wow. So you look at McGlynn, Malik Tillman, Diego Luna. There were folks that I know that you have the instant gravitation toward when you're sitting there and you're looking at shiny objects going up in this match. But you get the 1-0 lead, and then it comes down to simple decision making, and it was not a good decision on the pass that created a quick turnover and an equalizer, and then you're trying to, from that moment forward, figure out, okay, now we're tied. How do we get out of this jam? And it creates another opportunity, and Turkey takes advantage of it. So it came down to, I think, individual decisions and decision making in moments of pressure that were created by Turkey trying to create short fields and trying to be clinical.
Well, and one of those by a guy who is supposed to be a leader of this team right now. I mean, you have several players at his position not here. And Johnny Cardoso puts out a flat up stinker, John. I mean, we're talking, the baby had ribs for the first time stinker. And it was,
Ow.
I mean, looking at his FOTMOB rating below 5 is atrocious, right? And in that moment specifically was really bad. But he also provided really nothing else. And he's a guy who is careening toward the Josh Sargent, bro, are you actually good? Question. Because he has yet to put out a good performance for this U.S. national team, despite looking pretty good at the club level. Now, you can argue he's not being played in the exact way that he does for Real Betis, but bro's still a deep-lying-ish center midfielder, right? This is not like you're asking him to be a left back and he's failing.
Sorry,
right? We're talking.
You said deep lying ish, and there was a beat there, and I'm like, okay, so does he mean deep lying ish, or does he mean deep lying ish? And so it took me a second to
Deep dish.
Yeah. I didn't know if you meant that space in there for deep lying ish or deep lying ish. Yeah, so it took me a second. So, okay, it's a Monday.
But no, that's the thing. It's like, okay, well, I'm sorry that we're asking you to play a little bit more as a 6 than an 8. Figure it out, man. This is not that different. Jay Fortune can figure out how to play left back for a terrible Atlanta United team. You can figure out how to play center mid in a slightly different space. Sorry, your coordinates on the field aren't exactly the same as you're used to. Figure it out. And he's not doing it. And that repeatedly has been the problem for him, to the point where I don't want to see him at all during this Gold Cup, because what has he shown me? And if I see him against Trinidad and Tobago and he looks fine, okay, good. Jesus Ferreira did that. Look where he is right now. Ask Seattle about that, which I'm probably sure we will ask Seattle about that in a little bit.
Yes, we will.
So that is, you're right, John. I mean, the individual moments, look, we have to say it. Miles Robinson was just also bad this game. He is not necessarily to blame for that second goal, but he had a chance to clear the ball and completely fails to do so. He also was not great working with Richards for the rest of the match. He's not an Atlanta guy anymore, so we don't have to claim him, but we still want him to do well, and he didn't. And he's had some really bad performances for the U.S. national team. I mean, he looked bad in January camp, right? Remember that, going back to that, he was not the guy you expected him to be in a January camp roster. It's kind of sad to see, to be quite honest. But, John, it's not all, and that's the thing, is like, you're going to remember these 2 goals because within a span of, 4 minutes, everything imploded. But the rest of the match was okay enough, especially the second half.
Yes, and so let's roll through the numbers as it's presented by our friends at Soccer America. 7 players getting their first opportunity in this window to represent their country. Matt Freese, 3 saves, 2 clears, and then the 2 goals in 4 minutes. They give Freese in his first cap of 5.
I mean, I don't think any of the goals were his fault. Sure. Sure. He still gave up 2 goals, but, I don't think any of them were his fault.
Right. Defenders, you mentioned Chris Richards. Central and this is, once again, what we always do for a baseline is go to our friends at Soccer America. Mike Waitala responsible for this one. Central defender Chris Richards seemed to reach all Turkish high balls with his head, but when the Turks kept the ball on the ground, the U.S. backline became vulnerable, even had midfield help while failing to intervene before Aktürkoğlu's go-ahead to make it 2-1 during the build-up. Miles Robinson and Alex Freeman both tackled. Left back Max Arston had moved to the middle when Oguz Aydin fired from the right wing the ball that deflected off of Robinson to Aktürkoğlu's feet. Right back debutant Freeman out of position on Turkey's first big chance when Kenan Yildiz served up Arda Güler for a wide-open chance. He hit high over the bar. Debutant fared okay under plenty of pressure without risking forward movement. Richards' blocked shot steadied the backline during Turkey's second-half counterattacks. This is harsh. Alex Freeman, a 3. Miles also gets a 3 from Waitala. Chris Richards, a 6. Max Arston, a 4.
I think it's harsh on Max Arston. I thought he was better than a 4, but he also only, didn't play as much, so that's going to factor into that. No, I did not think Freeman played well, John. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
I know the whole point of this camp is to prop up MLS guys who have had a decent season, but Freeman did not show the promise that I think he brought in to camp with, and certainly didn't show the hype that a lot of MLS dudes have said about him. And look, like I said, I haven't watched him extensively, but he hasn't looked great against. He didn't look great against Atlanta United in one game, and then the other game was kind of a non-factor because our team is unable at that point to create any type of offense. So that's pretty easy game for him. And I just don't think he did anything worth remembering, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
1 of 3 on dribbles, which is kind of the thing he's supposed to bring, is some slightly more offensive juice. But this is his debut. You get one bad chance, and hopefully you can put it behind you and you learn from it, because it is. I mean, look, the conditions were not great.
Yeah.
But you're going to play in rain.
Yeah.
Other times, too.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
So
that is
you got to
true.
figure it out.
Yes, that is true.
That's where we're at. You got to figure it out.
Yeah, midfield. A false sense of comfort came over the 5-man midfield in the early going when they easily sent passes together after Jack McGlynn's, it was more than 18, Mike, but he says 18-yard golazo. That cohesion waned midway through the first half when the Turks shifted into an attacking gear. He mentioned Johnny. Johnny took 2 lazy touches near the USA's penalty spot before banging the ball in Arda Güler's leg, from which it rolled into the U.S. net at 1-1. Lost the ball shortly afterward in his own half for another Turkish chance, replaced at halftime in a planned move. Malik Tillman won more balls in midfield than Cardoso, but after being part of the McGlynn give and go on the USA early goal, infrequently sparked promising attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Besides a good cross that Luca De La Torre skied over the crossbar in the second half, still, De La Torre was the most capable of the midfield core in progressing play forward for the USA. Diego Luna initiated a counterattack that led to a McGlynn block shot and a 6-yard header that Tillman headed into Berke Özer's hands. Tillman's weak effort came after a strong U.S. start to the second half that included Arfston shooting high from inside the penalty area. McGlynn gets a 7. Malik Tillman gets a 5. Johnny a 2. I think that's the first time I've ever seen a 2 from Soccer America. Luca De La Torre a 6, and Diego Luna got a 5.
I think that was really generous to McGlynn. I think we're factoring in his goal a little too much.
I think so.
Look, you score a banger like that, you get an extra point outshone to your rating, but at the same time, I don't think he was particularly effective the rest of the game, to the fact that I think his former Union teammate outshone him when he came on in the second half. But De La Torre, I actually thought, was one of those guys that pleasantly surprised me as someone who, I don't know, looked competent. I'm not saying he looked great. Looked like he knew what he was doing, both individually and within the team. Didn't really amount to a whole lot, but comparing Cardoso to De La Torre, he was great. And again, I think Tillman, again, just a slightly disappointing performance. Yes, he gets the assist. Heavy air on the air quotes there, John. But he was, again, just not the dude we need to see. I mean, if you're going to play in that attacking midfield role and have come in with the season you had with PSV, the last 2 seasons you've had with PSV, the production you've given that team, and every single time you come to this national team, it's just meh. Again, he has yet to score for the USA. Again, another one who's kind of careening into maybe not careening, but a little bit of sleep at the wheel, and kind of moving toward that Josh Sargent camp of what's the point of bringing you in when you don't produce? And unfortunately for him, he is in a position where goal production is necessary. An assist is fine, but again, that assist was not necessarily some magical stroke of the brush. That was a pass to a dude who did a lot of heavy lifting after it. It just hasn't been there for Tillman, and that's the frustrating part. Again, for him and Cardoso, we are, as fans, you look at them play week in and week out for their club teams, especially a guy like Cardoso who plays at Real Betis, who made a Conference League final and, lost to a team that shamefully isn't playing in the tournament. I mean, it's not clicking for some reason at the national team. And Tillman, same thing. I mean, he lights out at PSV, he comes here, and it's like, bro, where is that? Especially when you compare him to his PSV teammates, right? Pepe shows up to the national team, regularly scores, right? Dest, although we haven't seen him in what feels like a decade. When he has played for the national team, you go, oh, that dude's special, right? And so it's just really frustrating that Tillman is not able to do that, especially in a game that we needed him to do that.
Big Pat got a 4. Patrick Ajumong wrestling with Turkey's defenders produced a couple layoffs and corner kicks when he finally had room to unleash a shot from Luna's 53rd minute pass. It flew straight to the keeper. So Big Pat just got a 4 on the day.
Yeah, homeboy, welcome to actual defending. It's not MLS anymore. I'm sorry to say it, but MLS, we know this. I mean, look at Atlanta United center backs. Lord knows they can't defend a sneeze in a paper bag. But
Careful, cowboy. Careful, cowboy.
Okay. A lot of MLS defenders cannot defend a sneeze with a tissue.
There you go.
And some of them play for Atlanta United. But Pat had to kind of have a wake-up call. And I don't think he really ever woke up to it. But it's, because I even think with Nations League, it was like, okay, well, yeah, you're playing some Panamanian or Canadian defenders that are decent, but there's a level of defending that Turkish players, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these very savvy, heady European players have that just we don't have in this hemisphere. And they know how to defend a big, strong, physical dude. And they defended it pretty well.
Yeah.
Not the showing I think he would want. The problem here is, John, we don't really have a guy that is screaming to come off the bench behind him, because Brian White, if you want to when we get into him, we'll talk about him, but Brian White wasn't the answer. Is Damian Downs the answer? I don't know. The dude's 20 and has like a year and a half of professional underneath his belt, same as Augumang. So it's tough right now because the striker selection in this particular camp is dismal. And that's no offense on those guys. It's just we're talking about like 5, 6, 7 on the depth chart compared to even a guy like, Ricardo Pepi or possibly even a guy like Brandon Vazquez being here, where you just feel slightly more comfortable because you've seen them do it for the national team.
I just haven't seen him do it for Austin FC, but that's another thing.
Hey, listen, Austin scored against us. He scored against us. I can't tell you another time that Austin scored this season.
Except for our buddy OG. OG.
Yeah.
He was at one point the second leading goal scorer for Austin, but I don't think he is eligible for national team caps, and it doesn't matter what team we're talking about. Tyler Adams, limited to 45 minutes because of fitness issues, being a major improvement over Johnny, no doubt contributed to a lively start to the second half.
Mm-hmm.
USA managed to get the ball deep into the Turkish half often, but had limited ideas on how to capitalize. In the end, keeper Uzer made 2 saves. Quinn Sullivan managed to cross after some nifty moves, but mishit a shot from Haji Wright's most impressive service. So Tyler Adams gets a 6. Mark McKenzie, Haji Wright get 5s. Nathan Harriel in his first cap got a 4. Quinn Sullivan, his first cap, get a 5. Brian White got a 5 as well.
What did you say that McKenzie got?
McKenzie got a 5, according to Woitala.
I think that's harsh. I think what we learned in this game, John, most importantly, is McKenzie. Now, granted, I will say that they had Tyler Adams in front of them, so maybe that is it. But McKenzie and Richards looked best together.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think Miles had a great game. Now, in Miles's defense, Johnny Cardozo was doing, I don't know what he was doing.
He was creating. He was creating.
He was creating. Yeah, he was creating chances. John, you're right. He was creating chances. Not for our team. And so either A, you learned that these center backs are really good and probably need to be the pairing you see going forward, which is still my belief. But also maybe we learned B, that Tyler Adams is just another level of invaluable when he's on the field, because not only did he mop up a lot, clean up a lot, but he also, because of that, was able to then turn that into offense very quickly, mainly by himself. I think Tyler, this was the best I've seen him play offensively for the U.S. national team. I mean, he was inside the opponent's box creating chances, John. That is welcome, but that's just not what he usually does, because that's not where his positioning on the field was. But I think that was a result of him and other defenders. I thought De La Torre played really well this game, but I thought Tyler and De La Torre on that second half did a great job of keeping Turkey from being able to truly break out unless it was a long ball right? That seemed to be the only time they were able to really break out of pressure. And I think that in itself is another good thing to take from this game is, well, yes, Tyler Adams being probably the best player on the field for the U.S. national team is not a surprise, but it's nice to see. And if you can get him with a guy like De La Torre, who is a very good kind of cleanup dude as well. Both and you can add the quick transition to offense. That is a good sign as you go to the Gold Cup, where you're going to be playing a team like Haiti and Trinidad and Tobago, who aren't great.
Yeah, and then, but at the same time, you know that you have an idea as to what they may do defensively, and it's going to be up to you to try to work around that.
Yep.
When it comes to Gold Cup, and they start actually against Trinidad and Tobago in San Jose on the weekend. So
which is again why I think it's positive to see Tyler playing such great attacking soccer. I mean, I think that was good, and he and Luca did really well in that phase of the game. So to answer your point, John, of how Trinidad and Haiti are most likely going to put, I don't know, 17 people, a brick house, and possibly an orca or two in front of the net. You know, having those guys show some offensive prowess was really nice this game.
The U.S. has a 7-game winless streak against European teams since beating Bosnia and Herzegovina back in December 2021. 5-game losing streak since their 2022 World Cup ties against Wales and England. And that sets up, obviously, the friendly Tuesday in Nashville. So shots 5-3 for Turkey. Shots on target 13-11. That's got to be reversed.
No, it's not.
Shots on target 13. Shots.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
no, that is reverse, but the U.S. had more shots than Turkey. Yes.
Yeah. Sure. 13 shots to 11, then 3
to 5 on target. There you go.
Target. Yeah. Soccer America has the numbers flipped.
No, they just, they put the wrong.
Yes. 3 saves for Matt Freeze, 2 on the Turkish side, 9 corners, 5 for Turkey, 22 fouls, 14 of them called on the United States. Just the one offside, and then 60-40 in possession for the U.S. Of course, when you have a 2-1 lead, it's just like, nah, don't want it. It's all good. You can do with it whatever you want, and then you end up where you are. So now you have the second. You have the second friendly coming up tomorrow up again in Nashville. Do we know what the ticket prices are first and foremost?
Well, I paid $55 a ticket for my ticket. And now they're down to $25 because they're running a special for Walker Zimmerman playing in Nashville. So thanks, U.S. Soccer, for doing that to me.
Oh, boy.
There's plenty of tickets available if y'all want to make the trip up. I'm leaving tonight, getting on a Greyhound at 4:30 and heading on up to Nashville. So.
Okay. So expectations in this matchup for you are what?
Well, I expect to add Swiss to a turkey sandwich. That's my bad joke about that this morning. I'm sorry, John. I don't know, John. I mean, look, I think that stat line you just laid out about European competition and our lack of success against said European competition is really disheartening. You mentioned that Bosnia game, but
at the end of the day, does it matter considering?
Well, yeah, John, because you got to beat them on occasion in a World Cup. I mean, you got to, right? I mean, that was the problem where
when you're kicking tires, does it matter in the context of each matchup, though, is my point.
I mean, John, we've been kicking damn tires on this team for what feels like 5 years now. And that's the problem is eventually these guys got to show up and do it. So yes, it does matter because again, you got to show up and do it. Now, again, I think when you look at, if you don't beat Switzerland, is the sky falling? No, because this is, as I laid out earlier, not your first choice team, not your, you're not putting a lineup out there to necessarily say, okay, this is the best 11 I have, right? Even within the second choice squad for the most part. That said,
yes, that said,
you got to start getting results. And you mentioned Bosnia, John, that Bosnia game was a December friendly outside of a FIFA window. So you got to start getting something. And I think more importantly, the vibes are way off with this team right now. And you had 34,000. I could go on to a long diatribe about that. 34,000 in East Hartford, Connecticut in the rain. Good for them. Who were ready to support you. You're going to have 25-ish thousand here in Nashville, maybe less. Tomorrow, you're rapidly losing support from the fan base. That's just got to call it what it is, John. And I mean, how much have we gone through that for the past 2 years, 3 years, 4 years with our local club, right? Where you can't just keep selling people on promise. You can't just keep selling people on, oh, well, we have talented players. You got to win on occasion, unfortunately. And furthermore, you could possibly be looking at 4 losses in a row heading into a Gold Cup. That's not great at all either. And again, you can say they're friendlies, and they are. But we know better than anyone that in the United States, friendlies aren't just seen as exercises. We do expect to win, especially when U.S. Soccer is charging the amount of the prices they're charging for tickets. And I mean that sincerely.
Well,
U.S. Soccer,
you don't need to be
charging
that much, frankly. But
no, I mean that's the problem is you have a lot of people paying a lot of money to support this team. People are paying more money for these dadgum Gold Cup tickets because they pretend like they are paying for 2 matches, which is the biggest scam in the Northern Hemisphere. And that is the problem is, especially, I even was like, why am I going up? I can watch this from home. I mean, at the bar, but for a heck of a lot cheaper than what it would cost me to get there to attend the match. So, I mean, we're teetering on. We might already be there, to be quite honest, because the results since last summer have just been dismal, and it's not great, John. Sorry, it's just not.
So before we get into reffing down here and activity with Seattle, one of them involving Nuhu, who I was waiting for him to get the Nuhu hat trick, foul card ejection goal, So we'll get into the Nuhu hat trick in a second. But apparently Mark Pulisic decided to go on to the media that is social and chase after Don Ovan and his comments about not playing in certain tournament situations. And so Landon Donovan goes on television. I'm not going to play it considering the network that it was attached to and the situation that's attached to and trying to sit there and say things in a studio situation. I get that. So Mark Pulisic then goes on social media and says, this guy is talking about commitment. Look in the mirror, plus grow a pair and call names out, or are you afraid next time you want an interview, you'll get rejected again?
Okay, well, yeah, sure. Call him out. Put on blast publicly that Christian Pulisic needs to show up and stop belly aching, right? Because that's the consensus here is are you committed to this national team?
Yeah.
And look, I understand that there are some optic issues with the messenger being Landon Donovan, who famously took a sabbatical from this team.
Right.
And that caused him to be left off of the 2014 World Cup roster.
And apparently the coach at the time has come out publicly and said that, yes, that sabbatical did lead to the decision of him being a part of the club.
Yeah. Which is a fair question of commitment. However, that was not something that was, how do I put this nicely? That was well known, well documented, and well explained.
Yeah.
And I think that is the issue right now is Christian Pulisic ain't said nothing. He himself has not said a damn thing.
Yeah.
He has said to U.S. Soccer, who then reported to us the things. He has maybe possibly said, or his team or the club or whatever has said possibly to media about maybe a lingering issue of an injury. So if you're tired of getting called out, bro, say something. Mm-hmm. Don't have your dad go on an Instagram story and say something when because you're mad that they said that your son isn't committed to the national team when homeboy has not played in a Gold Cup since 2019. Okay. And again, the last time we saw you, Christian Pulisic, you were losing 2 games in a Nations League final. And the time we saw you before that, you're failing at the Copa America. First host nation to ever get grouped at a Copa America. So why don't you look at yourself in the mirror, Christian Pulisic, Mr. Captain America, captain of this national team, and ask yourself, what are you doing to make this team better? Sorry. I'm over it. Y'all need to stop. Y'all meaning these players. Y'all need to stop acting like we're asking something monumental of you to be committed and win for this national team with as much talent as you claim to have in the career that you've had.
Yeah, see, there you go. That's why I figured bringing up the topic would get an answer this morning. I mean, Catalucci says that Pulisic can't handle a cold, rainy day in Connecticut. I mean,
he probably would have, hurt his left toe playing on this field, and then he would have been out for it. I mean, that's.
Oh boy!
Again, I could understand if you said, "Hey, look," for example, Jedi Robinson.
Yeah.
Saying I had to have some knee I had a procedure to make sure my knee was better. Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, now is the time to do it. Now, again, my other issue is. We got guys on Turkey whose teams are playing in the Club World Cup who they're going to be playing with those teams. Arda Güler is playing in the Club World Cup with Real frickin' Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
But he's here.
Mm-hmm.
Pulisic, you ain't got an excuse. Your club ain't doing crap this summer. Where are you, bro? You couldn't even make it for these friendlies?
Yeah, and I mean, that's... well, and yes, Milan, Italy is a nice place for exile. Let's get into some of the reffing down here moments of the weekend, and really we only have to go to one place, and it is Seattle, and
technically Vancouver, but
yes, thank you, involving Seattle and our man Nuhu, and he wasn't the only one, but nevertheless. When was the last time you saw literally a back-to-back red like we had for Seattle, where they go from 11v11 to 11v9 rather quickly? And we start with our buddy Nuhu, and in the late 51st minute.
Yeah. I need to look up what they did. Do you have the report of what they actually listed this?
Hang on just a second. So
I've never been able to find this because you document what type of yellows and red cards you give.
Right. Yes. All right. So let me find Nuhu red card. All right. So yeah, I go Nuhu red card. It's probably going to give me like 98 different things.
I know, that's a lot.
Violent conduct, apparently.
Okay, good, because that's what I wanted to talk about here, John. This is not dog, so yeah. I'll let you run through the thing, but I'll explain why the red card was given for what it was given for.
Yes. So Nuhu sent off for violent conduct. Well, wait a second. Let me see if this is in fact the correct match first and foremost, because God knows
Nuhu's had his fair share.
Nuhu is oh no, this is like old. Okay, so Nuhu red card. Hang on.
I need to figure out how to find these match reports, literally, because that, again, when a referee reports this, both writes it in his book and reports it to the league.
Okay, so all right. So I have one report saying that it was foul as the last defender, which I don't think it was.
It wasn't, and that's why I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
This is the talking point of the morning with it. So.
Okay, so I'm looking at trying to figure out why Nuhu got sent off, and it is literally so everyone is sitting here saying that it was last defender in references, and I am not seeing anything to the contrary about it being something other than last defender. So let's go through the play. We can't show it because we get dinged from the official police type folks. But so as we walk through the play, as we are wont to do as we do these things. So long pass, it's a big switch going from left to right. And it is
love this ball, by the way. This is This is a beautiful pass.
Late in the 51st minute. So long up the right-hand side, and Laborda heads it down to himself. Nuhu basically grabs Laborda, and it's almost to the point to where it is a hog collar. Literally, you're grabbing, and Nuhu grabs Laborda on his near shoulder, left shoulder, and basically rips and pulls and spins Laborda down. And it's an easy call, but they're saying there are reports that say that it was because Nuhu was the last defender between Laborda and the net, given the call. And I'm like, no,
he's not. And that's the problem that I have with this is I do think it's fair to say that at the time of the foul, there aren't many defenders back.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you why I don't think this is dog so. But it is still a red card.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. that is true. Yes.
To me, it's not dog so because I think when you look at the defenders, I think it's fair to say Nuhu was the last defender, right? But there are other defenders in the area. And the reason there are other defenders in the area who have a playable chance on the ball, right? That's not the official terminology, but we're looking at like, can you, in theory, defend this play, right? Yeah. Not even in theory, in realistic expectation, defend this play. The distance and direction toward goal are why I don't think this is dog so, because he is still far out in the far right channel, about 25 yards from the touch line, or excuse me, from the goal line.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly at that point, I'm not good at math, but that's at least 35 yards from goal itself.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at trigonometry there.
Yeah.
Sine, cosine, tangent. I don't think this is dog so for those reasons. And I don't even think you could say that even in those reasons, he's the last defender. I think there are two other defenders who, again, are in a reasonable position, especially, is it Roldan who's playing in that left center back role for them, maybe, is making a recovery run that, in my opinion, no, it's not Roldan, it's the other one, who, if Nuhu doesn't make this play, is probably going to be, based on how we're moving, making a play on the ball, or at least within reason and able to get there. So I do not agree that this is dog so. However, John, This is serious foul play.
Yes.
This is a red card. You cannot horse collar tackle someone like this. I mean, how many times have you seen that in a high school or college or a pro game on the American football side of things, Mr. Georgia high school football, and the back judge, side judge, line judge all would have had their flags out on this one because this is penalty. This is personal foul penalty, right? And so from that standpoint, this is absolutely a red card. I just disagree slightly that it's dog so. I do think, though, that it's serious foul play, possibly violent conduct, but I'll give him serious foul play because it's within the realm of trying to play soccer.
Yeah, sure. Some folks might sit there and say that there are times when Nuhu doesn't, but okay.
Well, it's debatable.
Yeah. The only thing literally the only thing I am seeing.
It's possible they wrote it that way.
It is
because this is the thing, John. This red card is not going to go to VAR.
No.
Because this is on multiple counts of red card. Like, this is not a clear and obvious error.
No.
So I'm sure the referee wrote dog so.
Was for Nuhu, not for anybody else.
Well, yeah. The referee may have wrote in his book dog so or foul as the last offender or whatever their code is. And that probably is what made it to the match report. I think had you had a chance to look at this, they would agree that it's not dog so, but it's still a red card worthy. It's still violent conduct, serious foul play, some of those things. And to be fair, sometimes you kind of have to combine a lot of things. It's at least stopping a promising attack, and it's at least a reckless foul. And while you don't necessarily put those together in equal red, it's all red. It all comes out red in the wash.
Yeah,
it's a bad foul, John. This is bad. I would not be surprised if there is a fine coming his way because of the nature of this foul.
Mm-hmm.
I don't don't know if it's worthy any more suspension. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's up to the disco committee because again, it's not violent conduct. I don't think it's that. It's within the realm of playing soccer. This is literally a soccer play.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is at least a flagrant 2, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So he'll get suspended his match, maybe 2, whatever the penalties are. And then I would imagine he'll get a fine. I don't know if it'll be more than that because, again, it's not like he threw a punch or play was stopped and he did this, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It absolutely does. So. And then, of course,
this is bad, though. I haven't seen one like this in a very long time.
Yeah, and so 3 minutes later, Jonathan Bell.
By the way, a lot happened within those 3 minutes in the match too, which is kind of the fun part. It's like it wasn't like, oh well, and they did it again. No, there was stuff that happened within the match.
Yeah,
Vancouver mounted like at least 2 attacks, and then I'll let you walk through it because this one was
and so legitimately. You're like, knew who gets the red. And then you have activity in the middle. Then you have a shot just wide of the target in the 54th. And so Stephen Fry's getting ready to go. Now, then you end up with, once again, another long ball over the top and then just contact from Bell. And Bell's
minimal contact. I hate it for him, but
Bell's like, no. And then it's like literally John Bell just like he grabs briefly and it's almost like a clicking. It's almost like a clicking of the boots. And then Priso goes down and then you see Bell go, no. And then it goes red card. And literally it's and the thing is that it is clicking of the boots, one each, and then Priso makes it worse by contact with himself and makes him, then his own contact with himself is what makes him go down now. So clicking of the boots and then hits himself, goes down just outside the 18, and then that's a red.
Yeah, I do hate this for Bell. This is a soft red card in the sense that, look, the foul is minimal at best, but he clearly trips him. I mean, you can see it. He very clearly trips him. He very clearly makes contact with him. But he is in the position here where, while there may be other defenders in the realm, right? They are on the field in a generally same area. The reason why this is definitely dog-so is because you're looking at the distance to goal and the direction of play, and he is pretty much going in on goal. The foul happens, I don't know, would you say that 19 yards out? I mean, that's
it's Emmanuel Sabi. It's not Priso, but it is on Emmanuel Sabi.
Yeah,
just outside the 18.
It's very close to. I mean, he's lucky that he didn't take another step or two, and that could have possibly just been a penalty, which means he wouldn't have got a red card, by the way.
Yes,
but it's dog-so, unfortunately for him, and that's why he gets sent off. It's not a particularly bad foul. It's maybe clumsy, but it's not a bad foul. This happens a lot in soccer where you just catch someone's ankle and that's a foul. But because of the distance, the direction of goal, the distance that the player is very clearly in control of the ball. It's dog-so for all of those reasons.
Okay, so explain why it would not be a red in that situation, because I know a lot of folks will sit there and they'll go, dog-so red when it's either one or the other and not both.
So dog-so red and dog-so yellow. We really only reserve dog-so yellow for fouls inside the penalty area that are denying an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. But the fouls have to be in some way, shape, or form within a natural soccer play. So this would have been, I think, in that conversation. It is tripping. It's not like he yanked him down from behind or just ran into him, right? He is there is nothing, and again, we're not judging intent, but there's nothing serious about this. There's nothing cynical about this. There's nothing to the point of like, oh, well, he clearly didn't have a chance. He's just trying to run and catch up with the dude, and he clips him from behind, right? Yeah. So in that case, this is a natural soccer play, if that makes any sense. Like, this is something we see all the time in the game where people are running next to each other. It's fine. He just happens to be half a step slower and clips him on the heels. So if that happens inside the penalty area, yes, it's still dog so. But because we give a penalty kick, we do not want to punish the team more than already giving them a penalty kick, which in today's day and age is very much likely going to result in a goal. I think the XG on a penalty kick is still like 0.73. So, the chances are you're scoring that. Yep. Even with Stephen Fry in goal. And so we don't want to, what we call, put them in double jeopardy, where they are now down a goal and down a man. So, I don't even know how long it's been, maybe 10 years now. They removed that aspect of the dog so inside a penalty area for a common foul, if that's the best way to put it.
Yeah. So that was why I wanted to, because folks will sit there and they'll wave at one, and they'll sit there and go, well, why wasn't it both? And that was why I wanted to walk through that, because there are times where you'll see, literally you will see fans who might be watching a match, or they'll be at a match and they'll sit there and look, well, why wasn't it, A and B as opposed to A or B?
So, for example, John, a handball inside the penalty area for denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity, that's a red card, because that's not an actual soccer play. You're not allowed to use your hands in this sport. Right. Another one could be, so for example, maybe not quite what Nuhu did, but grabbing someone by the shoulder and pulling them down could be seen as not a soccer play, right? That is, especially from behind like that, you could still give a red card for that. Okay. But just slightly being off on your challenge, a shoulder to shoulder that slightly miss, not really. Tripping from behind in this instance, not really. So again, common fouls that are still dog so, and this is a perfect example, right? This is John. Look, this is a common foul. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Look, you tripped them, it's fine. But you happen to be the last defender on a goal scoring opportunity, and therefore the foul denied the obvious goal scoring opportunity. It's dog so, it's red card. If that happens in the penalty area, it's probably just yellow. It should be just yellow and get the penalty kick. So
okay. All right. So you are heading north. So when are you heading north and getting everything?
My Greyhound bus leaves at 4:38. Wow. Very precise time. So I'm taking a Greyhound up, and then I'm coming back tomorrow after the game with some of the friends who are going up tomorrow. They, it must be nice to not have real jobs. They can drive up and back. I'm kidding. They have real jobs. They just have the ability to drive up and back the same day. I don't. I got to work tomorrow, so I'm working from Nashville tomorrow.
There you go.
Don't tell my boss
that you're working from Nashville.
No, I've got it cleared. I was like, I'm working from home on Tuesday. So.
Yes, I'm working from home on Tuesday. Yes, absolutely true. It's just that home happens to be wherever the laptop is. No, I'm right there with you. All right, so the most recent episode of the Soccer for US POD is out. What else do we need to know?
We may record Wednesday, depending on what my energy levels are, to recap these friendlies and look at the Gold Cup. I think our goal is to get an idea of who we think our starting 11 should be for the Gold Cup. But as we discussed in the last episode, that's even still tricky, because are you putting your best 11 out against Trinidad when probably the most important game is that game against Saudi Arabia? Or do you just say, look, we got to get all points that we can, and we're putting our best 11 out there as best as possible, as many times as possible? That's the kind of the balancing act. Now, if you remember, John, the Gold Cup schedule feels compressed. You go Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, but then you get a whole week off because the quarterfinals don't start until Saturday, the 28th. Yeah, 28th. And so we'll either play the 28th or 29th for a semifinal, and then you play a quarterfinals. Then you have semifinals midweek, final on a Sunday. So it's like two compressed schedules, but you get a whole week off in between them. So that's the question of how much do you put out there in that group stage to beat Trinidad, to beat Haiti. I would argue, John, you need to run up the score as much as possible against Trinidad, because Saudi is a good team, and you can't guarantee you're going to win that game. So if you go out there and put 10 on Trinidad, hopeful, that puts you in a good position, even if you don't beat Saudi Arabia, but still don't lose. So if you tie them, you're still feeling good, especially Haiti on the last match day as well, to possibly get some more goals. So it's just tricky, John. I think that's the hard part about these two friendlies with the not having the first choice guys, is if you're using these friendlies to learn about Gold Cup positioning, great. if you're using these friendlies to learn about who can and can't compete at a World Cup later, possibly also good. But it's just kind of tough because I feel like you got a lot of goals that aren't necessarily how do we get the best 26 together next summer.
Yeah. And so obviously we're going to be watching and keeping an eye and following along as we go through all of this.
I do have a question, John, if you'll let me.
Sure.
Planet John. Sorry,
Sure.
Planet John. Not you, John. Planet John in the chat. Where is the link to this Atletico Dallas stadium plans? Because the only thing I've seen regarding them is the training facility plans, which look great, and the big multi-million-dollar soccer complex. So I'd love to see where you're seeing the stadium plan discussion, because that's been one of the things I've harped on is a lot of USL teams who claim they're going to somehow magically be better than MLS teams when Pro Rel gets instituted don't have stadiums of their own. And I think that's a vital piece of the pie here that no one's really factoring in. But I would love to see that, because I think Atletico Dallas, fantastic crust. I'd love to see what they're going to do with it.
Yes. And so obviously keeping an eye on all of that. We know what our title game is going to be in USL Super League, and we will see what it looks like elsewhere in and around everything. Just be safe going up there, have fun, and make sure that you take a lot of notes. And this is going to be your busy time.
A lot of notes, yes.
Yeah, well, it's going to be your busy time with us, involving everything involving the national teams, involving Gold Cup, and we're going to budget you with the actual paying gigs as best we can. As always,
now, John, can I also share a conspiracy theory?
Sure.
USL Super League.
Sure.
Where is the USL headquartered?
I believe it is headquartered in Tampa, Florida.
Okay, and both of these teams that made the final are from which state?
I believe that would be Florida, sir. Yes.
Couldn't have written a better script for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's.
I'm joking. They earned it, but it's just it's coincidental, ain't it?
and where is the championship game being played?
I believe that will be in the great city, mildly good city of Tampa, Florida.
See, I mean,
actually, Tampa's fine,
and it's at that constructed, beautiful riverfront, bayfront stadium that hosts the Tampa Bay Sun. So
yep,
so 4B.
Look good for them. I think this has been fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So we'll keep an eye on it as we go. Enjoy the rest of your day, my friend. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on you and what's going on with everything going on with the SoccerForUSPod. Don't be a stranger.
Follow me at SoccerForUsPod on Twitter and Blue Sky. You'll keep up with the fun.
Right there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's SoccerForUSPod. All right, be good, my friend.
Bye, y'all.
All right, there goes Bart. And so, Rich, good to see you, popping in to say hi, as always. Nice to have you here. All right, so let's get into all of the other news. Apparently, as it is laid out, the code, the release clause for Thomas Frank has laid out to about 10 million pounds. And so that is the check that has to be cut for Thomas Frank to be going from Brentford to Spurs. And so keep an eye on the $10 million that goes from one place to the next. And so we will see what the latest is there when it comes to that particular matchup. So 10 million. That's what we're staring at. So 10 million is the number for Thomas Frank to be laid out to go from one place to the other. So that's what we'll keep an eye on when it comes to that particular matchup and that particular new line on his dossier, his CV. And so that's where we are when it comes to that. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what other stuff I had that was listed. Oh, yeah. We got to talk about that. All right. So we know that it looks like the wages for the Club World Cup are a bit of an issue at the moment. And you have players for Major League Soccer who are less than pleased with the layout of how much, who's getting what, and where. So you've got Where is it? It's in the news section. Where's my news section here? I need headlines, but I don't need where was it? And so it's like I go to the one place where I thought I could find it, and then of course, where is it? It's not there. Portugal beating Spain, third straight loss, Nations League reaction. That was not what I was looking for, but okay. All right. So what if we did this? So if we go here and get that. Okay, so here we go. This is from Lizzie Bescherano et al. Discussions between MLS and the PA over the Club World Cup. Prize money and player compensation remain ongoing. Two sides failing to agree so far on terms in a newly revised section of the CBA. Seattle players, once again, we mentioned that with the T-shirts. MLSPA initially released a statement in support of the players' actions, two parties demanding a fair share of the Club World Cup prize money teams secured when qualifying for the international tournament. Original CBA stated players receive 50% of the money from outside tournaments with a cap of $1 million. Source with knowledge of the discussions told the four-letter that a revised proposal from MLS committed to grant players on the three participating teams 20% of the performance-related payments for wins, draws, and round advancement. Players collectively would receive $1 million for participation, in addition to any money earned for victories, draws, or round qualification throughout the tournament. Separately, LAFC earned $250,000 collectively for the victory against Club America in the playoff May 31st to secure a spot in the tournament. MLSPA received the proposal back on Friday. Source with knowledge of the discussions added MLSPA demanded a larger percentage, but has not formally responded to the league's proposal. In a statement, however, MLSPA called the actions taken by MLS as, quote, retaliatory, end quote, and unsatisfactory. Quote, in the statement, the timing, substance, and retaliatory nature of the proposal sends a clear message. MLS does not respect or value players' efforts with regard to this tournament. Although not surprised, the players in MLSPA are deeply disappointed by this message. MLS's refusal to negotiate in good faith has created a major distraction for the players who should be focusing on preparing for a major international competition. However, players will not be silenced by threats from MLS. Players remain united in using their collective voice and demanding a fair share of the rewards earned for their hard work, end quote. Organization later added that MLS introduced, quote, back-end compensation of 20%, an amount that remains below the international standard, end quote. And also, quote, did not add a single dollar for players from the $28,650,000 windfall that MLS will be paid by FIFA. According to the MLSPA, the players' share of that amount remains at barely 10%. Two sides have yet to agree on new terms, making the current CBA the standard. A work stoppage by MLS players over the bonus dispute isn't possible due to provisions in the CBA. Under the current CBA, players have agreed not to strike over issues that fall within the scope of the agreement, but they still have the right to engage in protected actions under federal labor law. And once again, that is from Jeff Carlisle and Lizzie Bescherano when it comes to the latest involving all of those numbers. And trust me, it's a lot of numbers that are attached to all of it. I'm trying to see if there is anything else that would be attached to the latest. It's like, so nothing there. Eduardo Tansley at the Athletic, as of the overnight, once again, best clubs in the world. What do I need to know about the lesser-known teams? Auckland City, the only reps from Oceania, have won the Champions League there 11 times in 14 years. Botafogo, A, D, E, and F groups only have one European team, so teams from another continent will progress to the round of 16 from these groups. In Group H, Al Hilal and Pachuca should challenge Salzburg for second behind Real Madrid. Obviously, the favorites are PSG, who once again demolished Inter Milan 5-0 in the Champions League final. Real Madrid, obviously attached. Manchester City, that's attached. You've got a lot of the big names that are attached as well. Real Madrid will have Xabi Alonso in the dugout, and former Liverpool defender Trent Alexander-Arnold set to make his Madrid debut after they paid the fee for him to join for the tournament. Liam Delap could make his debut for Chelsea. Inter Milan will have a new manager, expected to be former defender Christian Chivu after Inzaghi left for Al Hilal. Other deals could see Jonathan Tah feature for Bayern Munich and Jorginho for Flamengo. So that's what you're looking at. But remember, right now you've got grass being installed at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Grass. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens there. What to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. It's a light day today. World Cup qualifying, Italy and Moldova's at 2:45. An international friendly coming up at noon Eastern. Liechtenstein and Scotland. Both of those are on FS2. Fox Deportes is in the middle of broadcasting the U20 tournament, the Maurice Revello. Panama and France at the bottom of the hour. Fox Soccer Plus has World Cup qualifying. Kazakhstan and North Macedonia going on right now. Should be started the second half. And at 2:45, it is Estonia and Norway. And speaking of qualifying, I saw this, and this was kind of like a really cool stat from our friends at, I want to say it was at the Sweeper Pod, but it has to do with our friends at San Marino. And the wild thing about this is you have the possibility, and this came out yesterday, of San Marino having a 34% chance to reach the World Cup playoffs. And you know how we are about our friends from San Marino. Their most probable semifinal opponent, if they make it as of this weekend, would be Italy, first and foremost. 16% chance. And then Turkey at 11%. And then it would be Ukraine, Denmark, Croatia, Belgium, Switzerland, and France. That's your top 8 and most probable semifinal opponents. To reach the playoffs, San Marino needs both Romania and Sweden to finish top 2 in their World Cup qualifying groups. The list of most likely playoff opponents for every European team is once again available for our friends at Football Meets Data. But the fact that San Marino of all countries has a 34% chance of reaching the World Cup playoffs, and our friends at Sweeper Pod, San Marino versus Italy. And it would be the first time, I think, that you have a completely and totally landlocked nation playing another nation to be a part of the tournament. So you got that. You've got that to hang on to. Other news, just to kind of wander around before we get out of here today. And once again, we've mentioned Thomas Frank. We mentioned Thomas Frank. Once again, that's about another 48 hours. Keep an eye on that. Newcastle is stepping up their pursuit of Pedro after missing out on Brian Mbeumo. And apparently also, according to Newcastle and our friend Luke Edwards at the Telegraph, the club's deals are being blocked by prices and restrictions because of PSR. Newcastle growing increasingly frustrated by rival clubs putting a Saudi tax on transfers, Saudi tax in quotation marks, and refusing to be held to ransom over key targets. Telegraph Sport have been kind of privy to the negotiations for players amid warnings there's not enough money to spend large amounts on each of the 4 players they want to sign. Senior club sources believe a so-called Saudi tax has plagued the club since the takeover of the PIF. As a result, they're trying to explain to rival clubs that there is a warped perception of their spending power. They remain heavily restrained by PSR, profit and sustainability. New contract for Isak also in the pipeline. Talks are expected to start in next month. Newcastle can't spend upward of £60 million on players when wages are also a consideration. Although the sale of Miggy and Lloyd Kelly brought in around 25 and has given Newcastle some flexibility, there isn't a lot of headroom, according to Luke Edwards. Newcastle targeting a keeper. Looks like it's Burnley's James Trafford. Center back, right-sided forward, and a striker. Depending on player sales, another midfielder could arrive, especially if Longstaff is expected to depart. So an example of the whole Saudi tax thing comes with Mbeumo as an example. Cameroonian was identified as a leading target 2 weeks ago. But once again, the wage demands as well as the transfer fee of more than £60 million proved to be too expensive a deal to pursue. Mbeumo would have likely been their highest earner if he had signed. That would have inevitably prompted others at the club to ask for parity, which moves your wage bill up. And then if you don't sign folks to match what Brian Mbeumo would have been making, then you got pissed off people that are playing for you, that are on your roster. Negotiations with Isak will be difficult, according to Edwards. Bringing in new players on significantly more money than that, once again, is fraught with danger. Semenyo and Elanga have been discussed extensively, Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest. Joao Pedro, another player who's been repeatedly scouted, seen as a strong potential signing. But Joao Pedro's price tag could be upward of £70 million. Then once again, the amount outbound plus the wage bill could make it difficult for you. And so that's where your cycle is. James McAtee is liked by Eddie Howe, could be available for 25, not getting enough first-team minutes under Pep Guardiola at City. Mohamed Kudus is another player that they're looking at West Ham. Mark Gahey is valued at around $40 million. Crystal Palace have explored a deal involving Ousmane Diomande if Gahey goes. And so that Luke Edwards article over at the Telegraph kind of breaks down what it looks like right now for folks to chase after things inside the walls at Newcastle, and they have to be very, very careful about how they're going to be spending their money so they don't fall in line and violate PSR. So that's the largest element there involving our friends at Newcastle. Then Mikel Antonio is nearing an exit, as apparently he and West Ham cannot agree on terms. We'd mentioned Robert Lewandowski before we get out of here. Lewandowski says as long as Probier's is the coach, he ain't going to play. He's been left feeling betrayed and very hurt by Probier's after quitting the setup because of a row over losing the captaincy. Stripped of the armband on Sunday by Probier's, who has appointed midfielder Peter Zielinski as captain instead. Lewandowski then announced he was quitting the national team, citing a loss of trust in the coach, refusing to return to play for his country as long as the coach remains in charge. He's been in charge since 23. Led the team at the Euros last summer. Quote, I hope I will still have another chance to play again for the best fans in the world. Lewandowski was scathing in his criticism of how Probier's handled the situation. Quote, I haven't been captain for a year or two. I've been wearing the armband for 11 years. I've been playing for the national team for 17. Seemed to me that such matters should be handled differently. Everything was communicated over the phone. Really shouldn't be like this. The coach betrayed my trust. The national team has always been the most important thing to me. At the same time, I'm very hurt by what has happened. It's not even about the decision regarding the armband, but about the way it was communicated to me, end quote. Press conference Monday. Probier said he called Lewandowski Sunday night from Finland, where Poland play on Tuesday. Robert replied, the armband means nothing and it won't change anything in the team, according to Probier's. About a second call later that evening, Probier said, quote, he told me to make it sound like he had given up the armband. I replied that I wouldn't do that. Later, I learned from the media that Robert had given up playing for the national team. No one is closing the door on him, but I wish him luck. There are situations in life when you get offended, and then you move on. In football, you can't get offended. When I asked whether he considered retiring from international football altogether, Lewandowski also accused Probier's of caving into media pressure and breaking agreements. Lewandowski said, I want to sit down and think about it all calmly. I need to catch my breath, and I will be able to say more about my thoughts and what's next. Today, there is regret and anger. I've always cared a lot about the national team. Nothing has changed in that respect, end quote. So, 158 appearances, 49 more than Jika Błaszczykowski. Poland faced Finland in Helsinki Tuesday night, trying to get their 100% record and keep that intact for qualifying for the World Cup for 26. So that's your rundown of everything going on today. I'm sure we've left some news on the table, and I apologize for that. But we'll be back at it again tomorrow morning at 9:05. Lucas Panzica, who's going to be calling the match for Westwood 1, along with Jamie Watson, going to join us batting leadoff. We'll see if Jamie can join us, too. We'll get you through your Tuesday. We'll talk about what happened in the weekend in Major League Soccer outside of the Double Reds in Seattle. Get you ready for Club World Cup. Get you ready for Gold Cup. Get you ready for all the things. Wednesday, once again, traditionally, it is Tyler, it is Dylan, and we'll get you ready there. Thursday, it's Nino and Nico. Friday, we'll get you ready for the weekend. Very, very busy weekend across the board. There's a lot of ish going on, and I mean that in the most official way possible. There's a lot of stuff. Gold Cup, Club World Cup, MLS. It's all happening all at once. And we'll talk about it here the whole time. Before we get out of here, David, is the spending PSR issue just new or more of an issue now? Or is this more like the other things in the news coverage is that much better than before? I mean, I think that it's probably more vigilant now. So it might be the latter, where spending in PSR, you just kind of were like, okay, well, and then when something happened, you're like, oh, it happened. But now with everybody keeping an eye on things, I'd like to attribute it to journalism and chasing after things and making sure that folks are kept abreast of all the situations. But we'll see. So yeah, we'll see what it is. But I'd like to attribute it to journalism being somewhat self-serving in all that, where you've got a lot of folks who are trying to get stories. And that's the other thing in this. Make sure that the stories and the sourcing that you see in these kinds of things are accurate. Check your sources, check your sources, check your sources. But I'd like to attribute it to journalism. That's just me. David, all these poor rich people seem to want a salary cap. Yeah, because it controls their bottom line. And it's not spending out of control. That you find in the championship, in the second division in England. That's another story for another day. For everybody here at SDH, I'm just John. Thanks to Bart. Thanks to Abe. Thanks to y'all for dropping by, as you always do. Back at it again tomorrow. Once again, we'll talk about, we'll get the table set for the men's national team. We'll talk about what happened in MLS on the weekend. Anything else that crosses our desk, we'll talk about it all and get you ready for a very, very busy week across the board. They're installing grass at Mercedes-Benz, people. At least we'll be able to see it for the next 20 minutes. So they're installing grass. Keep an eye out on SDH socials. Jason will probably have all the pictures of them rolling out the grass for you and what the conversations are like as they're rolling out the grass, getting ready for the Club World Cup, which we will be covering for you across the board. So for everybody here at SDH, I'm just John. See you in a little less than 22. Mucho plats. Y'all play it safe. And since it is the end of the show, it means I get to do this. See you again tomorrow morning.